Hey, and welcome to another episode of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine, where we talk to the founders, innovators, and entrepreneurs behind some of the world's most exciting fast casual restaurant concepts. My name is Sam Oches. I am the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. Today, I'm sharing a conversation with Russ DiGilio. He is the founder and CEO of Duck Doughnuts, a donut franchise that has grown to about 90 locations in the U.S. and globally, with plans to grow even more. Before I jump into today's conversation, I do first want to tell you about another restaurant podcast that I think you're really going to like. Restaurant Unstoppable is one of the industry's longest-running podcasts, with an incredibly deep archive of interviews featuring everyone from restaurant executives to chefs to authors and industry consultants. Host Eric Cacciatore believes that behind every great restaurant is a great person. Tune in to Restaurant Unstoppable wherever you listen to podcasts, see what greatness looks like, and start aiming for greatness in your own life. Now, back to our program. Now, I have mentioned on this podcast before that I have a daughter who, as I record this, is 3 years old, and my daughter loves sweets. She loves chocolate, she loves candy, she loves popsicles, she loves anything that is sweet. I'm sure that's really not so abnormal for a 3-year-old girl, but one of the things that she loves the most is donuts. This is really a special thing for her, and every so often on a Saturday morning, my daughter and I will go and get donuts, and we usually go to our local Duck Doughnuts. There's a reason for this, and it's not just the delicious donuts. Duck Doughnuts does this really great job of making an experience out of the donut shop. Yes, they have a wide range of delicious donuts and several toppings that you can either customize or get a signature donut, and they have seasonal menus. It's all really exciting on the menu. But a part of that experience also is this opportunity to watch the donuts being made. You can watch the assembly line process as the donuts roll down and get fried and pop out, get the toppings on, and out comes this fresh, hot, delicious donut. And that is a really special experience for someone like my 3-year-old daughter. But also, Duck Doughnuts does a really wonderful job with their branding, the duck being the central figure and icon of the brand. They sell all these rubber ducks in a big bucket out in front of the counter, which, of course, as I mentioned here in this conversation, can be a little bit hard for a parent who then has to buy all of these rubber ducks for their kid. But it's special, and it's an experience, and that's really why my daughter loves Duck Doughnuts so much. Founder Russ DiGilio started the brand in Duck, North Carolina in 2007. There on the Outer Banks as this great boardwalk donut shop in a very touristy area. But since then, he has moved the brand to Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, and opened up franchising, through which he has grown across the country. Now, one thing about Duck Doughnuts that is interesting is they only do cake donuts. They don't do yeast donuts, which is, of course, what Krispy Kreme and Dunkin donuts specialize in. But as Russ talks about in our conversation here, he really sees that as a point of differentiation and hasn't heard necessarily from customers that they want to add a yeast donut. So obviously it's working for them with around 90 location and plans for many, many more around the world. I started by having Russ talk a little bit about how he got into this business. He wasn't in restaurants before, but then did decide to open Duck Doughnuts in 2007, and he started our conversation by telling me a little bit more about that.
In 2005, I was with my family on Memorial Day weekend, and I had been in the healthcare business at that time about 25 years, had my own business, management company, owned senior care facilities, just relaxing. And we were reminiscing really about donuts we used to get as kids on the boardwalk. And there was nothing, there were no donut shops in the Outer Banks at the time. It's kind of the charm of the Outer Banks.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot going on, and it's just relaxing. So we said, well, let's see what we can do about changing that and maybe come up with our own concept. And we did. Took a little while, and finally came up with the concept of a beachy type of store that's, you know, people are on vacation, they're not in a hurry, and we can make donuts for them, and they can watch while they wait.
Yeah.
They have the time to do that. And for the first 2 years, we finally opened in 2007, and actually concurrently in Kitty Hawk and Duck. And for the first 2 years, 2007, 2008 was abysmal. We just struggled. Nobody knew who we were. We used to celebrate $300 days of sales, which today is just, in the peak season, we're doing $7,000-8,000 a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we struggled, but we prevailed. The third year that we were operating, we broke even, and that kind of told me that this is going to have legs. It's starting to catch on. So we did another store in Kill Devil Hills, and then the year after that, we did one in Corolla.
Okay.
And they're all about 5 to 8 miles apart from one another. And by that time, it was just going gangbusters. People just couldn't wait to come down. They would write in on our website during the winter, "Oh, we can't wait for summer, come down the Outer Banks, get duck donuts." And they just continued to inquire, will you come to our hometown? Will you franchise? And I didn't want any parts of that. I didn't want to start a new business. I had a healthcare business. I thought my career would end there, and we just did it for fun, honestly, to see how it would go. So there we have 4 stores open and printing money, really, and it was just awesome, a seasonal business.
Yeah.
But it became so overwhelming with people requesting. I thought, you know what, if we do not give this a try, we're going to kick ourselves.
Yeah.
So we did. And so we then went and put everything together, and it took a while. It's like a stock offering. You got to put your manuals together and your marketing plan and do all these filings. And 2013, it took us a couple of years to pull all that together. We were going back to people had written in inquiring about that, and lo and behold, we had a couple in Williamsburg, Virginia, our very first franchisee, still in operation today and still doing well. And they took the plunge, and that was the beginning. Now, Williamsburg is about 2 hours outside of Outer Banks. We already had name recognition, and we had the newspapers there and radio, and it was a big deal opening a Duck Donuts in Williamsburg, and it was thrilling.
Yeah.
They get that kind of press and coverage. And after that, we went to Virginia Beach, and after that, we went to Richmond. Again, we had a lot of name recognition, a lot of fanfare, and did very well. The first challenge that we had was in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, really?
No one heard of us. People there vacationed in Myrtle Beach.
Yep.
And
Topsail.
Yeah. And it took we opened right before Christmas, I remember, in December, and it took about 3 months, and they were just killing it. And it just kind of proved to me that we don't have to be in a resort area. We don't have to. People don't necessarily have to know who we are. But if we're well placed and we got the right partnership with franchisees, this could play anywhere because people generally they love donuts.
Yeah, donuts aren't a beach item. Obviously, Duck Donuts originated on the beach. Maybe gives it that vibe, but everywhere in the country loves donuts.
Right.
So it's not like you have a seafood business that you're trying to get inland or anything like
Exactly.
that. So you said you had a healthcare business before. Had you ever worked in a restaurant?
Never worked in a restaurant. In fact, I put the components of the concept together and the artwork. I worked with an artist and put all that together. What I didn't have was any food experience. So a gentleman that worked for my healthcare business took care of all the dining services that we did. I gave him some sweat equity to help me out, put operations to it.
Nice.
And he did, and we were partners for a while. He has since left, but did a great job, and we were off to the races.
Was there a learning curve there for you in getting into the restaurant industry?
Not really. I let him take care of the food part of it. I knew what we wanted. We did a lot of testing with mixes and shortenings to try to come up with the right combination. And I knew when we finally did that this is it. And so, as I said, he put the operations to it, and we started slow, but eventually caught on and continues today.
It is such an interesting thing to think about running a business in a beach town because of the seasonality, but also because, as we all know, you go to the beach for a week and then you leave, and then a whole new group of people comes in for a week and then leaves. What were some things that you did to secure customer loyalty and to sort of capture that really transient nature of the Outer Banks?
They had to taste the donut. Quite frankly, we went out. We went to visitor bureaus and put out flyers and anything we could. All the rental properties that were there, we did advertising with those agencies. And as I said, it took a couple of years, but people are pretty loyal to the Outer Banks, and they kept coming back. And then they started looking for us. And even today, a lot of our growth is just kind of organic and people trying our donuts, and that's what makes them want to come back.
The idea of watching the donuts be made At what point did you land on that being such a signature to Duck Donuts?
That was from the very beginning. Anyone can make a donut.
Yeah.
And we thought we had the right combination for a great donut, but we wanted it to be entertaining as well. So we put the glass up and we put a step stool or a stepping stone for kids. They can press their noses against the glass and watch it being made, and it just clicked. I mean, kids love going and watching their donuts being made, even big kids, even the adults.
Yeah.
And, it takes a few minutes. If we're really doing it right, 5 to 7 minutes for a from-scratch, made-to-order donut is not a real long time. And having the opportunity to watch everything, we do nothing behind closed doors, so having the opportunity to watch the entire process is entertaining as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our niche. It's making great donuts, but we're also entertaining our guests.
Yeah. Obviously, there's Dunkin' Donuts is out there. There's other donut shops. And you guys, I mean, in the mid-2000s, I think that was before there was a little boomlet of donut shops that kind of took off around the country. But, outside of the being able to watch your donuts be made, how did you position Duck Donuts to be able to kind of rise above that competition?
Both Krispy Kreme, Dunkin', really good brands, but it's not what we do. We don't really compete with them from a standpoint of what we have to offer. We're a cake donut, completely made from scratch. They're yeast donuts, and for the most part, they're racked. We do not rack our donuts anywhere. So you walk into our shop, you're going to say, well, where are the donuts? Well, order one, we'll make it for you. That's the difference. So in a sense, we're disrupting the donut. We believe we're disrupting the donut industry because we're doing it a little bit different, and we're adding an experience on top of great donuts, and that's what differentiates us, and that's why we're kind of in a league of our own right now, and we're excited about our growth plans and trying to get this across the country and across the world.
Did you ever think that you might add a yeast donut? Was there ever any pressure to do that, or demand from customers or anything?
Never.
Yeah.
No. In fact, I remember early on, customers would come in and say, nah, I just like yeast donuts. And we'd say, well, just try one. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, and this was in our Kitty Hawk store. A woman came in, we gave her a couple donuts, she left. And honest to God, 2 minutes later, she came back and she said, oh my God, these are the best donuts I ever had. So in a sense, if we can get people to try them, when they're warm and they're made to order, they are out of this world. I will admit that.
Well, one thing, too, I like about Duck Donuts is, I mean, the range of toppings that you guys have available is really, I think second to none. And not only that, the options for, kind of customizing and doing whatever you want. And how much did that become a part of the Duck Donuts identity? And how much was that was that from the outset what you wanted to provide?
Yes, that was what I remember as a kid, and that's what I wanted to replicate. And I think we made it even better than I remember as a child. But that's the basis for our entire business: is a vanilla cake donut, a little crispy on the outside, light and fluffy on the inside, and it's delicious. Mm-hmm. Now, I will tell you that it creates challenges for us because we're constantly looking to be innovative and come up with. We're not the same company that we were 12 years ago when we first started, and we have made changes. So now we do donut holes, and we have donut sundaes, and we have breakfast sandwiches with the base being a donut. And so we're trying to be as creative as we can possibly be with different offerings, but we look at different toppings and icings, and we have seasonal offerings to change it up. We don't. No pun intended, we don't want the concept to go stale with our customers, mm-hmm. So we're constantly looking for ways to make it a little bit different. We've also gone to fillings. We have an apple pie being offered right now. We're in the middle of the donut is a real apple filling that is just, we can't keep it in the store. It's very popular right now. Mm-hmm. We have a buttercream filling as well. So drizzles and toppings and sprinkles and all different ways to make the donut just a little bit better than just being plain.
Sure. Or a novelty, right? Because I think that some people get this idea of the donut as a novelty, and there are some donut shops around the country that thrive on that, and that's fine. But you guys, I've never walked into a Duck Donuts and seen something where it felt like you were doing it for the headline. Is that true, or is there some pressure to try to do some of that stuff where you're trying to kind of wow people with these crazy flavors?
No, we like being traditional. It's a traditional cake donut, and we don't want to be viewed as trendy. So we like where we are. And I will mention one other thing. We are stepping out a little bit, and we're testing a chocolate cake donut.
Oh, okay.
And we're coming. It's been about 6 to 8 months now. We've been doing a lot of testing with it, but we're hoping that it's going to come. That'll come out probably more like a limited time offer. But we're excited about that, and we know we have customers that are excited about trying the same concept with a chocolate-based donut.
Now, it strikes me thinking about, the equipment and the kitchen and the process of watching the donuts be made. This seems so easily scalable because it just seems like everything is, certainly not cheap, I'm sure, but it seems pretty straightforward, and you don't have to add, you're not going to add like meat to the menu and have a donut burger which requires, a flat top or anything like that. So to me, I think this just feels so scalable. Did that cross your mind early on, even in those slow days? Did you just think to yourself, like, if only I got some momentum, I could open one of these in every town in America?
I get asked that a lot. But how big do you want to be? Do you want to be in every town in America? Only if it makes sense. And we are at a size now. We have about 83 stores. By the end of this year, we'll have about 100 operational stores, with quite a few in the pipeline. It's more important to me, and I know to our group, that those stores are successful before we move forward. And we're still gathering information and analyzing demographics and what's the best fit for our stores. But you're right, it is scalable. Just don't know where all we're going right now, but we're having fun getting there. We're across the country. We have our first international store in Chile. We just signed with a group out of Saudi Arabia for 10 stores, and in Dubai for 5 stores. So that's exciting to us. Puerto Rico will be opening, if not the end of this year, beginning of next year. And we have interest in other countries, and Australia is coming in, Canada. So it's not just the United States anymore. And it's a lot of fun.
And you mentioned the first franchisee in Williamsburg, and then you started to grow out from there. And you kind of mentioned, there's a lot of people who vacation in Outer Banks. That was how they got to know the business, and then wanted to franchise from there. Tell me about that franchisee relationship process, and I'm sure you get a ton of requests from people who maybe are not qualified to be franchisees, but what is the perfect fit for a Duck Donuts franchisee? Who are you looking for in that partnership?
That's evolved as well.
Yeah.
In the beginning, there's a lot of learning going on when you're doing something for the first time. And I learned very quickly that enthusiasm does not equal success, because we had people coming to us that just loved our brand and were just so enthusiastic, but it didn't always work out in terms of business. So we are far more stringent in the interview process, and making sure they have business plans, they have business sense, they have good people skills. There's a lot more to it than just saying, hey, I think this is going to work in my hometown, and I'm really excited about it.
And I'm sure you get to a certain size too, where you probably have the luxury of being picky, because now so many more people know about Duck Donuts, right?
I don't know if luxury is the word, but it's a necessity, because we don't want nobody wants failure, and
Right.
It's not fair to them. It's not fair to us, and you have it from time to time. It's just inevitable, but we try and minimize it just by having a better process on scrutinizing who we want to partner with, because we really do take it as a partnership. We don't sell a franchise and say, hey, good luck to you. We'll sell you all the products and keep it going. We are involved all the time from both a marketing and operations support standpoint. We are fully engaged with them on an ongoing basis.
So when you guys started out at the Outer Banks, and you really learned how to market to that sort of transient community, that seasonal community, the beach vibes, a little bit unique compared to maybe other, obviously, towns across America. And then you start growing outside of beach community. You start growing into, regular towns. What kind of shift was there in the marketing approach? Because you're marketing to people one way in these beach communities, but I imagine it must change in some other communities. So tell me about that shift in the marketing approach.
Well, it has evolved. Early on, it was just local community marketing. But as we've grown, we've become far more sophisticated, and we have field marketing managers that work with our franchisees. They develop calendars for the year, so there's a specific plan each year on an approach on how they're going to be out in the community selling donuts and getting the name out there and our brand. It's a little bit of a challenge on the East Coast, not so much because we have a huge presence on the East Coast. It gets a little bit more challenging as we get further away in the middle part of America and on the West Coast, where we have limited numbers of stores. But we're always encouraging our franchisees to work together where we can to have a great presence in the market.
And charitable efforts as well being a big part of that?
Yeah, we have a Quack Gives Back program. That's a way to stay connected to our local communities through sporting programs and churches and schools and raising money for different groups and also people in need. It's up to the franchisee, but we have our whole program built around that, so it makes it easy for them to stay connected with their community.
So speaking of that, donuts to me they just seem like such a community-oriented food, right? I mean, it's especially a group-oriented product offering in that, I'm on my way to work, I swing into Duck Donuts for a dozen donuts and bring them into my coworkers, right? So how do you set your brand up for success in that regard, especially today when this off-premises is exploding, third-party delivery and all these things? What are some ways that Duck Donuts becomes very accessible beyond the restaurant?
Well, we target three groups. Families, but primarily moms with kids, just love it. And then what we call our office heroes, where we have people bringing donuts or office meetings or just to say thank you to their employees. And then we have millennial snackers that they're not buying volume of donuts, but they love to come in for a couple donuts and coffee.
Yeah.
So for our off-premises business, we do a lot of catering work. We do weddings, all kinds of groups that buying volume of donuts. We have online ordering, so for people that don't have the time to come in and have the experience, they can come in and their donuts are waiting for them, already paid for, and out the door they go. So we're trying to stay as current as we possibly can with offering to customers like any other brand, and it's working very well for us.
Now here in High Point, North Carolina, you also have a food truck now rolling out. That seems like that becomes also a big part of this, getting donuts to the customers, not necessarily the customers coming to the donuts. Does that seem like a kind of a good opportunity for the brand in general to start rolling those out?
It's a great opportunity. It gives us great exposure with either a truck or a trailer, and it's all wrapped with our information on it, and it's quite a sight and very entertaining just to look at. But it's been very successful going to different events, weekend gatherings of groups, and our truck is parked there, and it does very, very well. So we're kind of looking outside of the box from just your traditional strip center store and looking into other venues. We have a new store that just opened in Penn State campus. It's in their skating rink, and now has access throughout the day for students, not just for certain events. We are in a theater in Richmond, Altria Theater. So we're looking at different ways to position ourselves to sell donuts. We're also looking at kiosks. We're very excited about, we have a deal with the Mall of America, franchisee there that will be opening in the next couple of months, which would give us tremendous exposure. That with the number of people that go through there, we're really excited about that opportunity, getting our word out.
Yeah, so for a lot of that stuff, is that franchisee-led? I mean, when you talk about the Penn State deal or the theater, is this something where a franchisee comes to you and says, I got this great opportunity and I think we should do it, or how does that work?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
But in that case, yes, they came to us. have been talking with the school and came to an arrangement, worked with us, and we did the fit out for them, and we're going to see how it works. And if it works well there, then obviously it'll work well in other areas. And that's why we're trying different types of venues to see where else this concept will reach customers and expand the brand.
And on that, in that same vein, I mean, do you try to also figure out how to make it a non-breakfast item? Because donuts to so many people seem like breakfast, but are you using these unique opportunities and venues to try to make it maybe a dessert or a snack or whatever?
Most of our stores are open till 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, and yes, it is a great dessert item, especially when we've added in the ice cream. We try and partner with local creameries wherever we can. If not, we have a Breyers brand that we use. Great ice cream, and it's after dinner and stop over and have dessert. Not only are we trying to be innovative with our donuts, but we've focused on our beverages, and we've moved beyond just having coffees and maybe espresso. We've gotten more into the frozen beverages, both caffeinated and non-caffeinated for the kids, and something that's really taken everyone by surprise and it's been very popular are milkshakes. Kids just love them, and people love the ice cream, and so far it's going very, very well.
Great. So I've got to ask about the branding of the duck, because as the parents of a 3-year-old who's obsessed with the rubber ducks that you guys have in your restaurants, the merch strategy you guys have is so smart to me, and to have all of the ducks with wearing different things and all that stuff means that I have to start collecting them now for my 3-year-old, which thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but that seems so smart to me, and I am wondering how much, and you have some of the beach vibes, you bring that into some of the store design as well, but how do you package all of this into sort of an overall brand and use that to really, become something to the customer? How much does merchandise play a part of that? How much does the beach vibe play a part of that,
It's probably more beach vibe than merchandise. In our resort markets, those types of items are very popular, but in just regular hometown, not so much, except for the ducks. Kids just love those, and we can't keep them on the shelf. But T-shirts and mugs and things like that, not so much. But when people are on vacation, they like to buy, and that does very well for us.
Sure. And so talking about loyalty, that's something that you're thinking about too, and building customer loyalty. What are the strategies behind being able to do that?
Well, we're more than thinking about it. We're very close to rolling out our loyalty program, Duck Donuts Rewards, and we're excited about that. And people, once that is in place, people will be able to order from their phone, pay from their phone, and also get great rewards for every donut. They'll get a certain number of points and be able to build up and use that for future purchases.
Everything app-based.
Everything app-based. Another way to build loyalty, I think I mentioned that earlier, was we're trying to keep it interesting and coming up with new ideas for toppings. We have seasonal flavors. It always kind of changing it, so there's another reason for a customer to come back into our store.
Yeah. You touched on this a little bit before about this idea of innovation. You're doing menu innovation, you're thinking of new flavors, but going back to the loyalty piece of this and the app, there's a whole technology component in the restaurant industry that is you got to keep up with all the newest technology advancements and things like that. So what does innovation broadly look like to Duck, and how do you keep ahead of that and also at the same time balance the fact that you're sort of a down home authentic donut shop?
I'm comfortable that we're, as far as innovation goes, that we're keeping up with online ordering, and we'll have a loyalty program soon. But there's other troubling things for business in general, specifically wages, sometimes out of our control, where certain wage levels are going to be mandated, and how do you deal with that? You can only raise your prices so much, you can only cut labor so much, and still keep the same type of family type of environment and make it enticing for families that want to come. So we're keeping our eyes open. Hypothetically, maybe we would pursue some automation of some kind, but that would be tricky, because we certainly don't want to lose the the human interaction and everything that we built this company on. So there probably are some ways to innovate and automate, but we're still working on that. Nothing definitive right now.
Okay, you mentioned labor. Everybody obviously is talking about that. Everybody is worried about that. What else is keeping you up at night? What are the things that are the biggest challenges out there today?
Well, actually, one thing that I'm happy about is we just hired a company to do a brand health check on us, and went to two of our biggest markets, and we were pleased to hear that they weren't so pleased because they wanted to sell more services, but that we, in fact, our brand health is very, very strong. But some of the issues that we have are really just brand awareness, and I think that'll come as our brand expands, but we can't wait for that. We're trying to find ways that we could be more top of mind with our customers. We're viewed more like a special donut shop versus one that where you could just pop in, grab a donut and a coffee and go. Because we're so heavily viewed as being part of parties and weddings and social events and tailgating and whatever. We do a lot of catering, and people see us as, well, that's a special kind of donut. But we could be an everyday donut too. So we have to change some mindset. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges we have right now.
It must help that, I mean, this is not a super overly complex business. I mean, obviously there's complexities to any business, but you don't have a menu of 150 items. You don't have a staff of 30 people in every restaurant. Do you find that there are efficiencies to the Duck Donuts model that help in an environment that you have today?
Well, part of our makeup is in our process has always been keep it simple. But just stepping back to that a little bit, one of the other challenges that we're faced with is consistency. So because we make our donuts completely from scratch, trying to make the perfect donut for every customer every time, whether it be in the Outer Banks or in Huntington Beach, California, I mean, that keeps me up at night. That's and while we say keep it simple, we're trying to keep it simple for our customer. For us, there is a bit of a science to it because there's temperatures of mix and a certain amount of water and that temperature and how long there's a whole process to getting the donut batter exactly right, and then once it's being cooked, that temperature has to be right for the right amount of time. And so there is a science to it, which we have nailed down, but training is extremely important part of what we do, and trying to keep our franchisees up on best techniques and making sure that they are then training their staff to make sure that we have that same great donut no matter whatever store you go to.
Sure. Well, what about like health? I mean, did you guys find that you are at all become a part of the health conversation and making things healthier? Or do you find that donuts occupy maybe a space outside of that conversation?
Donuts are a treat.
Yeah.
And we don't have any delusions that people are eating donuts every single day. Every now and again, and that's why our markets that we go into need to be substantial size so that it allows for that changeover of people. Where we have the Outer Banks, where you automatically have people coming in, every new group of people coming in every week. We don't have that in neighborhoods.
Sure.
It's the same people. So those neighborhoods have to have a large number of people to draw from.
Sure.
Surprisingly, our donuts, calorie-wise, it's about a little over 200 calories for a donut, which that's a bare donut, but it's not an unreasonable number of calories for someone to have a little bit of sweetness in their life and to enjoy a donut. But we are exploring other possibilities, vegan being one, and I'm sure in not too distant future we're going to be testing that in some markets that kind of demand that, especially on the West Coast, that are looking for that type of donut.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier you have a deal now for the Middle East, and you also have opened in Chile, right? Already opened?
Yes.
What kind of translation happens for donuts between countries? I mean, in the States, donuts are pretty embedded, but do you find that's the case in other countries too?
There are donuts in other countries.
Yeah.
They're already there. So we're not trailblazers in that respect. But what they do not have is a made-to-order concept that none that we found just yet. So we're excited about that opportunity to bring something completely different to these countries. And in Chile so far, it's there's just one store right now, and more are coming. So they're experiencing some of the growth problems that we had when we first started in 2007 in the Outer Banks. But the feedback that we have gotten, people love them. It's just that we have to expand the brand, just like we have to do in the United States. In the Middle East, it's exciting because those folks are very family-oriented. They love coffee, they love sweets, and we think that this will play very well in those markets. And we're really excited to open our first stores.
So last question for you, Russ, is thinking back to, when you first opened this business in the Outer Banks and thinking about all the things you've learned since then as a business owner and entrepreneur, what is your advice to other people getting into the food service space? To somebody who is an entrepreneur, has a big idea, wants to open a restaurant, what would you tell them?
Well, for those who want to open up a donut business, I say you better not.
Don't become a competitor.
Don't become a competitor. No, I would say, and I approach this with any business that I've had, and I've had others, that you have to be passionate about what you do, and you have to be able and willing to take risk and to take some lumps, because nothing is easy, and you just have to apply yourself and be persevere and be persistent. Those are probably the P's that I've applied in my life in everything I do. So if you can't do that, then it's not worth doing.
Yeah, that's good. Russ, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Sam, thank you. This has been wonderful. Appreciate it.
There you have it. That is my conversation with Duck Donuts founder and CEO Russ DiGilio. As always, go to qsrmagazine.com for all the news and insights you need for the QSR and fast casual restaurant industries. Go to qsrmagazine.com/podcast for the entire Fast Forward archive. Or, of course, you can get the entire archive on the app where you are listening to this right now. Please do rate the podcast, leave feedback, or email me at sam@qsrmagazine.com. That's all for today. We'll talk to you again next time.